So this workshop is about 40 minutes, and Pastor Tyler is going to be sharing for about 30. And then we're going to have time to go over some questions and answers. So as we go along, if you have a question you'd like to ask, please send me a private message in the chat box, and I'll facilitate those near the end. I'll probably just call your name and ask you to ask Pastor Tyler your question, and then we can go from there. So he has provided some resources to share with everyone. So keep an eye out on the chat box, because that's where I will send them to you, okay? So just a little bit about Pastor Tyler. He is the creative arts and young adult pastor at the Father's House Christian Fellowship in Sturgeon County, Alberta. And he's been there for a little over 2 years. He's also worked in Winnipeg and Edmonton and Calgary. He, in addition to being in the ministry, owns a media production company. So he does both ministry work and outside the church work. And this production company that he has does professional photography, videography, marketing, branding, and more. So we really are blessed to hear from Pastor Tyler today, because he has a lot of know-how that he can share with us. So take it away. We're excited to hear what you have to share with us today.
Awesome. Well, it is so great to be with you today. I have to just comment, right now I'm speaking from my home, which I live in Morinville, Alberta, which is not too far away from the church, about 3.5 minutes or so. And so I'm very fortunate to be able to be watching the convention today at our church in our auditorium with our staff today. And it's just been amazing to be a part of this convention. And I don't know about you, but I've been blown away by the convention so far, and I cannot wait for the rest of today and even coming into tomorrow. It's just been absolutely incredible. It's so moving and powerful, and I believe that there's a word for all of us there tonight to keep pressing on and pushing through in this season. I do want to introduce myself to you. If you see me looking over to the side here at all, I see your lovely faces on my computer screen, and I'm a very relational person. And so for me, I like to see who I'm speaking with and get an idea of who you are. And so it's difficult to say exactly who's nodding their head or agreeing or maybe disagreeing with me today. But it's nice to see your faces anyways, and your smiles back at me. So thank you so much. Thank you for choosing to be in this session. And, one of the things that I want to clarify right off the bat today is that this session is not going to be a session that is out of reach for you if you have a very limited or non-existent budget. I wanted to be able to provide you some resources across a few different, skip a stone across a few different surfaces today, and just give you a few little snapshots of some things that may inspire you when it comes to media and creativity in your context. And I really do believe that sometimes the best steps we can take are small, and sometimes we need to take those consistent small steps in order to realize the bigger picture. And so, today is not about money. It's not about how much you have to spend, although I will put some price tags on things so you can get an idea of rough estimate of things. But I want you to be able to be encouraged and envisioned to continue developing your online presence if that's the direction that you want to go. I'll be honest with you, we are still figuring this out. This has been a crazy year, has it not? It has thrown everybody for a loop. And I think overall, this world is busy navigating one of the biggest communication shifts in history. And so this has been a really unique season for us, specifically in our church as well. And I'm sure in your churches that we're all experiencing some varying different challenges on a day-to-day basis that require some technical know-how and even some online presence. I am currently serving at the Father's House in Morinville as the creative arts pastor, but I was fortunate to be hired on the staff as the youth pastor and young adult pastor to start. And it was an awesome opportunity to step in and own that ministry and be a part of the team. And under Pastor Greg Fraser's leadership, just have a real opportunity to grow and be given permission to try new things and to succeed at some of them and even fail at some of them. And isn't it true that sometimes failing is what really sets us up for success in the future, and trying new things can be a good thing, can be a hard thing too. When COVID first kind of came across, it impacted our church very quickly, obviously, as I'm sure it did for you. And so for many of us in our church, we had an immediate kind of knee-jerk response to whatever we have to do to continue serving our people is what we're going to continue to do. And so there was a real shift immediately in my portfolio to move into the position of creative arts, worship, media, and continue to serve our young adults. And so I'm very fortunate to have an awesome team. We have an amazing staff team that I just cannot speak highly enough about. And I love them and I love serving at this church. But it has not been an easy year. And just because I do this professionally outside of the church does not mean that everything is always professionally done on a Sunday or even throughout the week. I would be fooling you if I said that everything went well all the time. And we're still making many of the transitions and many of the things that we want to move toward our long-term goals and not short-term. And that's something that we've done intentionally to say, we're going to set the boundaries and set the parameters for the future and move in that direction, realizing that it's important, but not sacrifice celebrating the small things that are happening on a day-to-day basis and even a week-to-week basis. I'm a father, recent father to a beautiful 7-month-old little girl, and she is the joy of my life. It's absolutely incredible to be a father. And my wife and I both have had the opportunity to serve in ministry, and then my wife serving at the Father's House in our Christian school as a teacher. And it's just been an awesome community to enter into. But family is something that's really important to me. And so you can imagine that as I have moved into this position as creative arts pastor and worship pastor, that family has remained a cornerstone reason for why I do everything. Technology can be one of the greatest assistances in what we do on a day-to-day basis. But I really believe that there has to remain that authentic heart and connection to people. And so that's where I'm coming from today. We both have had the opportunity, my wife and I, to serve on staff in Winnipeg and multiple other churches just over time as servant leaders and even paid staff positions. And we've learned a lot. But I've learned something really crucial to ministry, and it's this. It's not the kind of access you have to resource. The temptation is this, is that it can be easy to disconnect authenticity, what makes you, your church, your unique DNA, while in pursuit of excellence. So when we pursue things excellently and to do things really, really well, the temptation can often be to disconnect authenticity from that in that pursuit. And this is one of the biggest challenges that I've faced. And sometimes, one of the cautions that I want to bring today, and this isn't always the case, so it's not a never do, it's not a rule that you can't break occasionally, but emulating systems and pathways that other people are doing well sometimes may not work exactly how you hope they will in your context. And that's okay. The biggest thing that you need to know is that you have permission to honor your people. You have permission to honor your community and your church. And if I could suggest anything, would be to take a look at the world around you and take a look at other churches around you and see what you love and see what maybe might work for you. But always return back to that true north of who your people are and how you can serve them best. It's important even to understand what the Holy Spirit has been doing in the life of whether it's a pastor or whether it's a layperson or a volunteer that may be serving in some technical way in the church, and in what way the Holy Spirit has maybe challenged that person and led them to make decisions that maybe we just wouldn't have the opportunity to fully understand without being in their shoes. A lot of decisions and a lot of things that I see even in this world, in church and in ministry as a whole, are really, really exciting and really, really encouraging to look at, but very, very intimidating once you actually start trying to make it work in your context. And I'm here today to tell you that there are some really simple ways that you can make huge leaps forward and steps forward in your online presence for relatively painless experience. And so my hope today is that you're encouraged as we go. And I say all of this to caution you, to encourage you, but I want you to look at today's concepts as informative and conversational, and look at them through the lens of your context. If you could do that for me today, that'd be great. I'm just going to take a look at the screen, see everybody's smiling faces. So good. My prayer and hope for you today is that each one of you, whether you serve as a pastor in your church or volunteer, or you just attend your church and you serve in some way, I just want to encourage you today that you are worthy and you are valuable and you are seen. And God has planted desires and passion and vision in your heart that I have no doubt will come to fruition in time as you continue to honor him. You'd probably all agree with me that now more than ever, there is a growing need to transition our ministries to some form of online platform. COVID has changed absolutely everything. And I know this is true even from speaking with Leslie yesterday and just having some conversation, just brief conversation over the differences and the challenges that she faces being in Ontario and me being here in Alberta. The question can often be, where do you start? What do you do? First of all, I want to encourage you with this. Pray. Pray and listen. This is so crucial, and technology and media and creativity are not set apart from the need to pray and from the need to invite the Holy Spirit to speak to you and to hear from God in relation to what choices you can make, and maybe even sometimes what things you can wait on and say, maybe not now, not yet, but sometime. And we can always be positioning ourselves to say, God, I'm ready when you're ready, and just reveal that to me. And so I hope that encourages you today. We've got to pray. We've got to listen. And so just before we kind of get started today, I thought that'd be a really good place to start, is let's pray together. If you would allow me to pray for this session. Father, we come to you today and we just ask that you would just reveal yourself to us in a powerful way. God, I just pray for peace on our people. God, all across this nation and all across this world, God, I pray for peace and hope. God, we believe in faith, God, that you are good, that you are faithful. And so, God, we look to those things and those promises and the truths and the things that you have accomplished, God. And we look to those things as a reminder of your faithfulness and your goodness to carry us through to what's next. God, we look forward to what's next, and we come with open hands today. We pray this in your name. Amen. Thanks for praying with me. It's one of my favorite things to do. As a vision-driven person, I often find it helpful to ask some questions that can really help clarify the goal and the outcomes that a desired change or shift in focus might bring. And in all honesty, I ask myself these questions almost on a daily basis, and they get me out of trouble sometimes, and maybe even put me in a little bit of trouble if I spend too long on them. But these questions are really helpful, and I'm going to put them up on the screen for us here. If you can see these, that'd be great. But if you can't, I'm going to read them to you as this. Number one is, where are we going? Number two is, what resources are available? Number three is, what do I need to get there? And number four, one of my favorites, is who is coming along? So number one is this: where are we going? First question is important in determining the direction of your efforts. We can often spend a lot of time and effort in the wrong direction and hope for good results. But if we're not actually really intentional about asking that question to start, we can end up wasting a lot of time. And time is really valuable. It's important to know, what is your destination? What is your vision? Write it out for your ministry. One of the cool things, even yesterday, was I had an opportunity to meet with some of our interns at our church that are handling our youth ministry right now. And I asked them this question: where are you going? Where do you want to go? What is your vision? And what is our mission? And this was amazing. And it was an awesome experience to see them come alive as they shared ideas and thoughts and really gained clarity in some of the next steps and some of the things that we were going to have to put ourselves in position to get and also prepare for in order to accomplish that vision. A vision is basically a snapshot of a future outcome. And that's something that all of us would know. We all work in a church or in a ministry of some sort, or maybe not even as a paid professional, but you serve in one, and you kind of have an idea of where you're trying to go and what the vision is. And so you can understand how this is a pretty important starting point. And we have to be really, really honest here. And I don't know about you, but sometimes that can be really tough, to be honest with where you're at in order to where you want to go. And that can be a real challenge, but I encourage you to be as honest as you can. Where are we going? What methods of communication do you see from churches that you like? What do you not like? That's a great question. What do you not like? That's a really clarifying position to take and say, in order to know where I want to go, I also have to know where I don't want to go. And I've heard it said a lot, that there are some churches that don't want to be a trendy church. And I find that a really funny comment to make, for the most part, because I think in my church experience, in my context that I have grown up in and been a part of, is I would probably consider my experience to primarily fall in that category of churches that are moving toward something and moving toward the future and moving progressively toward the latest technology and the latest music or whatever it might be. Now, that's not to say that works for everybody, But I wouldn't tell yourself to be afraid of being trendy. I think that that's a word that we've maybe misunderstood a little bit, and something that we could ask ourselves and say, God, where do you want me to go? What would serve our people the best? And then ask yourself that question, where are we going from there? Majority of churches have a website. Some, maybe some of you might even have an app. And those mobile apps are great. Church websites are awesome and necessary in this day and age. And if you have questions about ways that you can put together a church website in a quick way and an effective way and a cost-effective way, please message me, let me know. Leslie will include my contact information below, and I'd love to hear from you, and we can chat, and I can give you some easy resources that you can set up a website, a really simple landing page that will tell people everything they need to know about your organization. There's really good ways to do that, and there's some great programs that do a lot of the design work for you, that you don't have to really spend a ton of time thinking on it. You can allow those programs to do the thinking for you and specify things like color and transitions and overall design, and even where you put your logo and brand. Social media is a huge tool right now. And, you know, some people I know don't necessarily think that social media is all that valuable, especially in this day and age, right? Like, would anybody agree with me that there is a lot more negativity on social media than there is positivity? It can be draining to go on social media and to read some of the things on a daily basis. I mean, as a pastor myself, I have to bite my tongue almost every single day and avoid getting into confrontations and conversations with people that maybe need to be in person or even over the phone. But social media is a great tool, and nonetheless, there's a use and there's a place for it. And, you know, I would encourage you that if you don't have a social media presence, that this is a really good way to turn those platforms into something that actually benefits and actually increases your church's engagement. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more here. The goal of your digital strategy, this is a really important place to touch on today. It is ultimately to get more people in the seats of your church. We would all agree on that, that whatever digital strategy we have had in the past, whether it's just a website or you know, even email subscription lists or anything like that, the goal has always been to get more people in attendance and even maybe serving within your church. The chances are that you've probably made some pivotal changes already, even with COVID this last year and throughout 2020 into 2021, you've probably applied some form of digital communication to your arsenal of mainstream communication within your organization. But here is where the shift in priority happens. When you ask this question, where are we going? It's important to think on how this may impact and change your current discipleship strategies and systems. That's really, really important to think about. You know, as a technical guy who loves media and digital communication, it's amazing how valued this resource can be in regards to growing and meeting the needs of your church. But what I've recognized is that this isn't because we always necessarily want it. It's sometimes because we absolutely need it. And I think a lot of that has to do with maybe not understanding fully where we're going, not really understanding what the use of it is for. See, your church's discipleship systems, things like evangelism, small groups, serving teams, you know, even serving team applications, all of those kind of things, all of those things can be converted to a digital platform and done in a digital way. But for the most part, most of us have grown up or experienced some form of personal, primarily physical interaction within those systems. And in our church experience, there's nothing wrong with that. Most organizations that do discipleship, these pathways really successfully, have successful and thriving churches. That's true. The challenge is this, is that just because you have a website or a mobile app, even potentially utilize some of the digital platforms to showcase what's happening on a week-to-week basis, weekly messages, doesn't necessarily mean you're doing church online. What a thought. What a thought. You know, we can actually end up using these platforms and using these forms of communication in the wrong way and not necessarily fully utilizing them to understand that it can be really difficult to engage your online church presence if you don't understand that they're actually an extension of your church congregation. What a thought. That was mind-blowing to me to think about and to process that our online church engagement is actually opening the door to an online church congregation, and how that changes and how we meet the needs and the discipleship opportunities of that group of people is just as important as how we meet those needs on a physical basis within our church. So if you think about that and what that might look like for you, if you have, a welcome center in your church and right now you can't meet, how are you welcoming people to your church? If you, have a coffee with someone and want to get to know someone that might be new, or maybe a meet the pastor opportunity, how are you doing that online? Do you have an opportunity that has somehow added, not replaced, but been added to serve your online congregation, the people that may be serving or attending or choosing your church during this season of life? The second question is this: what resources are available? This is where we're going to get into some of the good stuff. Now, you've decided that you want to have an online ministry and presence. So, you signed up today, you're ready to start, you're here in this session. Okay, Pastor Tyler, give me the answers on how to do this, right? I'm going to share with you today my top 3 resources. And these will you're going to get actual practical and relevant information that hopefully you can take from here today, put in your hands, put in the Google search, and actually begin using these things immediately. And some of them will cost a little bit, and some of them are free. And a lot of these options have even free options available in some of the subscription-based services that are listed. So what I'm going to give you today is you're going to have a document that's going to share some links with you to some resource sites that I commonly use on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. And I would encourage you to check those out and take a little walkthrough and see what's the difference between a paid service and a free service, and could I utilize more than one of these things in order to accomplish what one of them is asking me to pay for, and how do I do that well? And the best part about these resources that you're going to see today is that a lot of them were designed by church people for church people, and that's what I love, is they get it and they have a real passion to put media and content in our hands in an effective way. So 3 resources, actual practical information in your hands. Here we go. Don't underestimate what's already out there. YouTube, okay? If you don't spend any time on YouTube, my encouragement to you is go to YouTube immediately following convention today and search up anything related to your church and your online ministry. How to engage my people online in church. There are so many good resources and videos of people that are doing this for churches, for people, and they're sharing information based on years of experience that they've had doing this already. That's what I love about ministry, is that so many of us do ministry in such unique ways that over time, and especially now in this last year, a lot of us as churches have been asked to step it up in this area, and specifically in media, where a lot of organizations that have had large budget and availability and access to those things before have been doing it already for years. And so YouTube is a great resource to check that out and open yourself up to seeing what you can find. Everything from church lighting to sound to content development and social media, everything you need can be found there. Another one that I want to share with you is a program called Pro Church Tools. And this is one of the really good resources that I recommend. And there is a cost to it, but it's really, really well done. And the media and content on this site is absolutely fantastic. And this is created by a guy named Brady Shearer. And again, he is a church guy doing this for church people. And the hope and the plan for his whole entire business model is to develop content for churches. And so I can't speak highly enough about it. It does have a cost to it, but it is incredibly well done content and something that's really valuable taking a look at. One of the kind of cornerstone things that he says on his website is that he's trying to help people manage and navigate the biggest communication shift in over 500 years. Now, that's been his mission statement for a long time, but I think it's pretty fitting for the season that we're in, even right now. And so I encourage you to check that out. One of the things that he has as well is a YouTube channel. And I already mentioned YouTube as a resource. He has a fantastic video, and I'm just going to share this with you as a few. He has one called Cheapest Live Stream Setup for Churches That Still Look Awesome. That's one of his titles. It's great. Another one is How to Reliably Track Attendance and Engagement for Online Church. Hey, there you go. That's what you need. How to Create an Online Church Service. These are just 3 of the years of content that he has available that could help you and get you started and start thinking about answering that question: where do you want to go and what do you need? He is a fantastic guy. I've reached out to him on social media before, and he's easily able to be engaged with. And I hope to be able to chat with him in the future and even involve him in some of the work that I'm trying to do within ministry, and bring him into the conversation of how we continue to navigate these shifts in communication in churches of all sizes. Now, he didn't pay me to say this. I don't have that much of a relationship with him. I'm not super close to him, but I appreciate what he's doing. And I think that it's awesome. And from someone like me who spends time in the world looking for resources like this, I cannot say enough about it. Another one that I use on a daily basis is churchonlineplatform.com. Wow, this resource has been absolutely crucial during this last year. This platform was released as a free platform for churches to launch their live stream services to a platform that allows you to customize your URL, your search, so that you can have, for us, it's www.tfhchurch.ca. That's our website, right? Well, our live stream is now live.tfhchurch.ca. Pretty amazing. We can use the same URL as our website as our church online platform. And really, communication is super key in this. You know, everything in branding and marketing is about eliminating distractions and driving people toward what it is that you're trying to show them. And so for us, I want to eliminate distractions. I don't want my URL for my live church portal to be, you know, sundays.live.tfh.fantastic.sundays at morinville.com. I don't want that. I want to create something that's easy, that flows off the tongue, that people can memorize and can repeat and can Google it by memory, muscle memory, every single week. live.tfhchurch.ca. Hope to see you on Sunday, and we'll see if that worked, eh? But that's one of my favorite resources as well. You can go on and check that out. You plug in your service times, how long you want your service to run for. You can program things like moments. Do you want them to be engaged and sent to a prayer card on your website? Well, that's easily done. You can set that up. Do you want to set up online giving and have them directed to how to give online through your church website? Done. Someone committed their life to Christ and you want to share and celebrate that? Done. You can have that right there. Raise your hand if you committed your life to Jesus. Then they're immediately sent into a private chat box where you can connect and pray for that person in a one-on-one way. This is what it means to engage your online congregation with eliminating distractions and saying, we're going to serve you in the best way that we can. Discipleship, ease of access, streamlined URL and branding, consistent language, and workflow. These things make this resource invaluable. One of the biggest issues that I faced moving into this creative arts position has been time. I do not have enough of it. Time is one of those things that, you know, I could spend time doing brands, doing logos, doing sermon series titles, graphics, those kind of things. I can do that. But how do I manage that and manage an online church congregation and plan a Sunday set list for worship? And how do I do all of those great things? Time is valuable. So for me, I needed content. I needed high quality content that I could adapt and use as is. So I want the option to be able to customize, but I also want the option to not have to customize. You know, not every week do I need a custom graphic, but some weeks I'd really like the availability to be able to do that. Well, there's two resources here, and you're going to want to write these down, and I have them listed here. Open.life.church. Life Church in the USA has released a platform over the last number of years that is free, completely free. And all you have to do is sign up with your email, create a password, boom, you can log in, you can check everything from messages to leadership training, to policies, to procedures, to worship team mentorship programs, to Hillsong Young and Free training, to Hillsong worship training, to Bethel. Anything that they have on that platform is free to use, and it's available for you at no cost. And one of the things that I love about that is actually sending that resource out to some of my interns at the church and saying, hey, for youth this week or coming up in 3, 4, 5 weeks, why don't you go online and take a look and see if anything visually catches your eye for a sermon series? And then let's pray about it. Let's spend some time on it and see what comes and what's developed out of that. It's amazing. You know, the cool thing even is with messages and things like that, and it's something that Pastor Greg and I have actually had quite a bit of conversation about, is that this resource is really good even for churches that maybe need some inspiration of content. oh man, I have this series that I really want to do, but I don't even know where to start. Well, you can go on, and not every series provides a transcript or provides a PDF version of the message that was delivered in that series by blank pastor, but some of them do. And some of them provide a transcript, and some of them provide a PDF or a video that you can watch and say, how did they navigate some of these larger questions in this context of this sermon series? Is that even a direction that I want to go? So again, my caution to you is don't take anything without understanding the spirit of why it was created in the first place. Pray about it. Discern with your leadership. Is this something that suits and fits our church? And you guys will make a great decision because it's free and easily accessible. So check that out for sure. The other one that I use on a day-to-day basis is Church Motion Graphics. And this is one of the things that has greatly increased our graphic and media presentation on a week-to-week basis. And this is where I get a lot of my graphics and design elements that also provide the ability to customize or use as is. And so when you, let's say I want a worship background that has a little bit of a flowing river in the back, I can take that image and I can download a video version. I can download a picture version. I can download a version that I want to use for scripture. I can download a version that I want to use as a lower third to highlight the pastor's name. There's so many different ways that that resource can be used. And the best part is whether you're Photoshop savvy or not, they have an in-software editor that you can take the blank version of whatever, the piece of content is that you're borrowing. You take the blank version of that, you can open it up in the editor and you can add your own text and export it ready to use. There is a fee to that program, but I will tell you, I don't even really notice it coming out of my budget because I use it so much. And it's something that we really, really value, and we'd miss it if it was gone. So I do encourage you to take a look and check that out. I think that the plus version comes in at around $199 US, $199. And the social media package that they provide as well is around $99 on top of that. So you can pick and choose what you like. But for $200, you get access to most of their library of media. And then for $99, you get access to their social media graphics and bundles and all of that stuff. So if that's a value to you, that's a great place to start. I'm going to spend some time right now on live streaming. And I don't know if, and many of you even have thought about necessarily moving in that direction, or maybe you already do. But this is something that I felt was a benefit for us today, was to chat through live streaming and some of the suggestions for initial gear and equipment that I can give you today. What do I need? What are some of the things that I need to be able to do this? There's some great entry-level suggestions here. But first of all, when you're done the conference, again, I want you to go to YouTube. I want you to type this in. Cheapest live stream for setup for churches that still look awesome. I want you to type that in at the end of the conference today, and you are going to find a video that's going to help you literally solve your live stream solution in something as cheap as $300 all the way up. And you can follow the playlist through there and see so many videos of content that will help you and do this really well. So there are some cheap options that we can start with, and this is one of them. This is probably one of my favorites. Now, all of us right now are on Zoom, and audio can be an interesting thing. Most of us have a personal device, a cell phone or a tablet or something of that nature, but not all of us have a really expensive camera. The camera that I'm using right now, I use for all of my business ventures. And it took me a long time to get to a place where I could afford this camera. But I've been able to somehow afford a phone for as long as I've needed a phone. And, my mom, would always tell me, you don't need this. You can go use a payphone, right? That was what the thing was. If I was out on my own, I could stop at the gas station and use a payphone. I don't see those around much anymore. So I'm really glad that I have this, but this costs way more than a payphone, and I'm attached to it. I'm sure you are too. But one of my favorite things about this device here, and it's called the Rode Wireless Go system. And this is a great entry-level mic system that comes in at around $260 Canadian. $260 Canadian. The best part about that is this. You can take this system that comes with 2 receivers, and you can plug one end of it into the bottom of your phone with an adapter. Now, if you have an iPhone, you need that little white dongle that plugs into the bottom. You can plug that in. There's also another cord that I've listed on the document that you're going to get shared with today that you have to purchase off Amazon, which is very cheap. You plug that into that, and you put that into your Rode Pro. Then, this is the best part. This piece gets clipped right on your jacket. And immediately you have excellent level lapel mic audio by using your phone's video camera. So you can transfer something like a Zoom call we could do today. Or let's say you have no other resource available to you other than Zoom or other than Skype, or maybe even Facebook Live or Instagram Live. And that's how you want to start doing online church. For 260 Canadian dollars and some change, you can get yourself a decent camera with what you already have and great audio that will immediately excel your content and your stream. Audio is one of those things that people will either click away right away or stick around. Video most often is, pretty standard in our devices as of right now. And so you can pretty well rely on something like this as an entry-level solution to solving your audio needs for something like this. I love that there's cross use with this piece of equipment, is you can use it for something like live streaming, but you could also use it for something like Zoom and for something that we're already spending a lot of time on. It's a great investment, and it's something that I personally use in my business, would suggest it 100%. I will say that one of the biggest misconceptions that I've recognized in the technical realm of production in the world of ministry is that to get the equipment I need will cost more than I have. And this is one of the things that I struggle with, even when I started at the church and kind of getting a handle on what, creative arts budget looked like. And then, okay, that's what I have. From my business standpoint, I could buy one camera. I don't know what I can do with that, but what do I need? Where are we going? What can we start to make? What decisions and steps can we start to take that will set us up for success down the road? And you know what? It's been awesome to look at resources like this and say, this is a real practical solution that we can use with equipment we already have, other cameras, things like that, that provide excellent level audio and deliver an excellent product. So, one of the principles that I, introduced when I started my business was that I only upgraded my equipment when I could afford to buy it outright. I think that's just a good life principle, is only upgrade your equipment when you can afford to buy it outright. And what this does, and what this will teach you, is actually how to maximize and use the equipment that you do have, the gear that you do have accessible, to the best of its ability. And I say that because I think that we can go a long way with some entry-level equipment before we start spending tens of thousands of dollars on cameras and equipment that the most everyday average person, and maybe even your volunteer, won't know how to use anyways. And so I'm not saying that it's not a value to look at that equipment. What I am saying is that it's never not a value to look at entry-level equipment as a good solution for the short term. So if you don't have, in terms of sound quality within your church, if you're looking for something a little more advanced, you don't have a digital mixing board, but you have an analog board. I just want to say this really quickly off the bat. If you can, I would at some point begin to start to prioritize moving towards a digital audio board. The reason for this is that a lot of the systems that you're going to end up using with Church Online and with live streaming and with platforms that are digital in nature are going to function more natively with a digital platform and with a digital mixing board. And this is something that I know there's some resistance toward in church communities and culture, just in general, as a shift away from analog toward digital. But it is really the way of the future, and it is something that we're really working toward. And so I would encourage you that if you could prioritize anything in your church budget, it would be that shift from, if you have a current analog board, a sound board, to start to transition to a digital board if and when possible. And there's some great options, and I've put some of those on the document as well, starting at around $2,500 all the way up to upwards of $5,000. And so there's some great options there as well. Okay, moving right along. We have some mid-range options. So you've got some budget. You want to actually jump in. You want to start live streaming, adding in the equipment necessary to do this well. Depending what you need, here are my suggestions. You have some live action video cameras, high quality audio, lower thirds and other media playback, and distribution to social media and website. Now this sounds a lot, but it sounds expensive and that it could be tens of thousands of dollars, but I'm going to tell you this, is that you could accomplish this entire setup, and you're going to see it in the document. You could accomplish this entire setup for just about $3,000. And this would not only enable you to have cameras, but also live stream accessibility and the switching physical piece of hardware that you would need to set that up and begin live streaming immediately. Now, this is assuming that you have some form of soundboard already, along with a computer. But everything else that you would need in this list that I've included for you in this document for around $3,000 would allow you to have a multi-camera setup, a live switcher that will allow you to put your cameras into that switcher and control your online service that way, as well as lenses, all your cords, batteries, cables, everything like that, everything that you would need for about $3,000. I'm not proposing anything that I haven't used. These cameras that I've included on this list, and hopefully you can see the list today. I'm going to throw it up here, but it's very small, so you're not going to be able to see it super well. But the cameras I've listed here are the Sony a6400 mirrorless cameras. These are great entry-level cameras, and they price out at about $898 per unit, and that's US dollars. But the best thing with these is that you can invest in 2 of them for the cost of one larger camera, maybe even half of one larger camera, to be honest. I mean, the camera that I'm filming on right now, for just a frame of reference, is about $3,000. That's not necessarily affordable when you're looking at a live stream solution for a total of $3,000. And I'm giving you 2 cameras along with everything you need to get that set up and running. So I really encourage you to take a look at this. This is something I've done a lot of research on, and a resource that I found that I absolutely agree with, because I've used and owned this equipment myself, and it is excellent and will do what you need it to do. So we've got 2 mirrorless cameras. We've got a couple lenses for you. We've got a wide lens as well as a zoom lens. We've got your ATEM Mini Pro, which is your switcher unit, which has 4 HDMI inputs on the back. Now that means you could considerably take 4 video channels into your switcher. You could have up to 4 cameras coming into your switcher. The cool part with this is you don't have to. You could use 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can scale it up as much as you want. Maybe even integrate a camera you already have, and you could plug it into the back. That gets plugged into your computer. And if you're using something like ProPresenter or a program similar to that, it recognizes that switcher unit as 1 input. That's the beautiful part. When you have something, a piece of hardware recognizing it as 1 input, you now have the ability on your switcher to change and crossfade, transition between your camera angles in a way that adds depth and interest to your single shot for live stream or for online church. I mean, you've experienced it today already in our main sessions and at convention, and you've seen the switching happening, and maybe not even necessarily noticed when they switched to the piano, when they switched to an up close of the guitar, when they switched to a wide shot. You could accomplish up to maybe 2 of those angles with this setup. You could do a wide shot, and then you could do a tighter shot on the speaker or even the main worship leader. You have a multi-view monitor, which will allow you to see all of the different feeds that your cameras and your inputs reflect based on the switcher unit, all of your cables, everything that you need, and a tripod head as well if you need to be able to fluidly move those cameras. So this is a resource that I really wanted to leave you with today, because I think it's a really great entry-level solution to solving a live stream problem that many of us are faced with right now, and how to get started in this in a way that doesn't cost or take all of our budget. And so, best part about this is, to me, this would be an excellent proposal to take to your church team, your leadership, your board, however it is that you make decisions within your context. And you can take this as is and say, here's what I'm looking at, and here's where the research that I've done. This is what I think would suit us well. And you can always scale it back, but anywhere is a good place to start. The cameras have great autofocus, ability to focus on the face, keep things nice and clear. That's a benefit. You don't have to manually do anything. A lot of foolproof when it comes to the camera use. The lenses are affordable. The cords are reliable. Everything here is something, again, that I've used and would highly recommend. When it comes to graphics, overlays, things like that, lower thirds and media playback, would definitely recommend ProPresenter. If you don't have a subscription with ProPresenter, or you use something else, bless you as you use it. I have very little experience with anything other than ProPresenter, but if you have in-depth questions about ProPresenter and want to talk to me one-on-one about that, I would love to chat with you. My phone number and email I'd like to release to any and all of you today, and we can share that information with you. And I'd love to be a calm and cool, collect voice on the other side of a phone call if you ever need help working things out. The best part, and I'll get to the end here with this. The best part with ProPresenter as of right now is they've introduced a new update that has actually allowed us to send our feed into ProPresenter, into our computer, to go out the door for live stream. But at the same time, it is now managing or able to manage our live stream platform, which is incredible. It actually, takes a lot of the software need away from other exterior programs that would run your live stream and actually embedded it directly within ProPresenter. And so this is something that works really well. It pairs with a program called Resi that will send your live feed to Facebook, to Church Online platform, to YouTube, to multiple different platforms all at once, and will even notify people when you've gone live. So it's a great resource and something I really do suggest. But again, I'm here and happy to speak with you one-on-one if you have any questions at all. Biggest thing, and I hope you hear this today, is that at the Father's house, we're still in process of learning, and we're not quite there yet. And you know what? There's sometimes in each week we come across something and a hiccup that causes us to say, you know what? Isn't God good? God is so good, because we are so much further along than we imagined we'd be even a year ago. But the reminder for me, and the thing that I love about our church, the thing I love about the FCA, to be honest, is that I believe that we're a group of authentic people that understand what it's really all about. And so my encouragement to you today is to not lose focus of what really matters. In our pursuit of all things technical, it's really, really easy to get caught up in the race to keep the latest and greatest gear and even equipment available and at your fingertips. But more than anything, I would say that authenticity wins every single time. And each one of you have more to offer than you can even imagine. So begin asking yourself those questions. Take a look at where you want to go, where you hope to be, and I will continue to pray for you and hope the best, and really do want to be here for you if you ever need support or have any questions at all when it comes to media, creativity, and anything technical. Thank you for joining today. I'd love to take a few questions, and I can stick around for some of the break as well. And I'll pass it back to Leslie here, and she can facilitate that portion. But I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be here today.
All right. Well, thank you, Pastor Tyler. That was a lot of great information. And so I do have that document. I can share that in the chat with you all. Does anybody have any questions? If you're thinking about something that you want to ask, go ahead and let me know, and I can you can go ahead and unmute. In the meantime, I can start it off. I got a couple questions. So you gave us the list of all the equipment to stream a service. What kind of staffing do you need? How many volunteers do you need on a typical Sunday to be able to handle that?
Great question. I currently have 2, and we could use more, which would be great. I have run it alone. But I, again, have spent the most time with the equipment, so I understand it. Basically, what I do is I set my sound at rehearsal during our midweek rehearsal. I save that profile so that I don't have to think about it too much again on Sunday. And then on Sunday morning, when I'm trying to get live stream ready and all our graphics ready and everything like that, I manage sound from an iPad directly in front of me as the rest. I'm not saying that that's an ideal solution. I would say 2 people would be the bare minimum that you could run that with, but 2 people who have a relative understanding of sound and then ultimately of the digital side of it would be more than enough.
Great. That is helpful. I would have guessed a whole lot more, to be honest. Does anybody have anything that they want to ask? I do have a couple more questions, but I'd love to hear from you if you don't want to miss out on somebody who's got a question. Just unmute yourself and say, I do.
I do. Say, Tyler, have you any experience with Sling Studio?
I don't have any firsthand experience with Sling Studio, but I have heard about it. Do you currently use it?
Yes, I do. It does a lot of what you're doing, and I'm a one-man operation. And you can plug the same general thing, 4 cameras in. I can use 1 camera and 2 iPhones and get the whole benefit of 3 cameras.
Yeah, that's amazing. There are, like, again, limitless ways that you can manage this and tackle this kind of problem, or even this solution. Things like Sling Studio are fantastic and definitely good. you know, my kind of understanding with things like that is that further along integration with, you know, continued levels of gear and equipment and overall kind of involvement in ecosystem is kind of what I like to keep things in ecosystem mentality. And so something like that is a great solution for you, is a great solution for anyone looking to immediately have access to start. Long term, if you're going to build out your gear to be able to suit needs for a little longer, it might end up kind of handicapping you a little bit in that way. But again, I don't think it's a detriment at all. I think it's absolutely beneficial. Love it.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Like it's not, you're not going to be able to expand it much, but I use it because it serves all that I need to do, and the price is pretty good. So anyway, it's worth looking at, just the Sling
So
Studio
good.
about
Yeah,
it.
no, that's great. That's all.
But
So
good presentation, Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds, Dennis, that sounds like a great option for people to start with if you want to get on in the next couple weeks and you've got a couple iPhones and you can get rolling on that until maybe you can get a budget cleared or something like that.
Yeah.
That might be a really good option.
You know, one of the things I was, you know, that I wish I would have spent more time on when we made the transition. Luckily, I had a lot of my gear from my business that we were able to use right away. But then even looking into when we had to purchase some things for our churches, I almost wish that I would have taken a moment to just kind of breathe for a moment and just wait. Because things like your devices and things like that are a fantastic solution in the short term. And even not even a solution for necessarily short term, but something that you can actually build a system around that may suit your needs for long term and not have to cost a lot. So really my hope today is, more than anything, is you just really reflect on where do you need to go and where do you not want to go? Because sometimes those larger expenditures may not be for you and may not be what you need. I can tell you at the Father's House, there are things that I've already said no to that we just don't need. And we've actually been quite happy with where we're at. And now we're just working on audio quality online. So that's a whole nother realm of discussion that I'm happy to get into with anyone privately, or, you know, even if you want to call or email about. But online audio quality is definitely a larger conversation.
Does anybody else have a question that they want to ask Pastor Tyler?
Sure. I was just wondering, I guess it depends on your internet and how good that is, but we do live streaming of our regular service. I'm just wondering, with kids ministry, would that be a problem to do live streaming at the same time for my kids ministry? Or is that, you know, I don't want to put time into this if it's just too much with the internet, or I have to pre-record it. Is that my only option?
Great. So you're talking, you have an element that you want to live stream in your kids department that you also want to run simultaneously as your Sunday morning.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So I can tell you, internet is definitely a factor. We are in Sturgeon County, just outside of Morinville here, and our best solution for internet was a rural satellite option. And it has been a very big struggle for us to have consistent and stable internet, which is why I'm running my session from home today. They're having a few Zoom sessions at the church. And so, you know, what I would do is I would contact your internet provider and ask them and say, I want to run 2 live streams, and I'm just wondering if that's going to cause a problem. You might have some upgrade options that you might be able to look at. But if your live streams as well, what you can do is when you're running a live stream, you can pull Google open up on your computer, and you can actually run a speed test. You can even do this on your devices. Open up a Safari or something like that on an iPad or a tablet, or you can run a speed test. Just type in speed test, and you can see how many megabytes your internet is downloading and uploading. And then you can compare that to the plan and to what you're looking at when you're live streaming, and see if multiplying that live stream would be something that you could actually accomplish on your current internet load.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Just to say, Jocelyn, I think it is, I love the options that are available, not to discourage you in any way, but I love the options available with something like pre-recording, even certain elements, because there's a real unique opportunity to say, what could I pre-record that I don't have to do live, that could be done even maybe in advance. Maybe I could film a few weeks in a row of maybe my intro segment or my host segment or something. Those are going to be much smaller files to send out than a live stream would be. But again, that's something that's really tough to discern whether I'm kind of personally, I love the pre-recorded because there's options with production wise and video and capabilities that way, but you miss a lot of the authenticity of an in-person response.
Okay, thank you.
So we're actually already into our break time. So the next session does start at the top of the hour, but Pastor Tyler has agreed to stay on a little bit longer. So we can stay here till just close to the top of the hour if you guys want to keep asking and chatting. Anybody else?
I got a quick question about the fact that in the States, they're starting to censor what churches are putting out. Is there anything that that is coming in that is not as hard on churches? Because sometimes we feel a little bit too cautious about what we're trying to say and not get the message across because we're not sure what on earth they're going to do on the other end once they look at what we're presenting, week by week.
Yeah, that's a great question. Algorithms are a really interesting conversation when it comes to things like Facebook, social media platforms, Instagram, things like that. Those algorithms are designed in such a way as to put information in front of people based on preferences, based on search preferences and keywords, things like that. Social media is definitely going to be the area that you're probably going to have, if any, have difficulty with maybe something being flagged or something not as visible as anything else. But some ways around that are to create things like a Facebook group for your church or for your service and actually post and run your live stream to that group. Your group will be notified if you go live. And so they'll be engaged with your content regardless of whether or not it sees the news feed, the public news feed or not, based on algorithm. But honestly, something like the Church Online platform and things like that for live streaming, if you can go through a third party that also puts your feed onto an external platform that coincides with social media, I think that's a benefit. But I would never solely rely on social media as a long-term option. I think the world that we're in, I do think that it's pretty interesting to look at and to kind of observe some of those changes that are occurring in the world. But I think that most people, for us, we stick to our core and committed kind of things that we're loyal to. And so if you have a group, if you have kind of local support in your social media, things like that are a gathering place online digitally for people to gather, if they see that you've gone live and they see that you can engage there, I think they're going to anyways, whether or not Facebook, allows it to be seen on the main news feed or whatever. I've never personally had that problem, and I maybe have said some things that I shouldn't. Overall, I think the biggest thing to watch out for is copyright. Things like that. If you use music that you haven't paid for, don't have licenses for, if you're using graphics that you don't have permissions for, things like that. A lot of the subscription services that I've listed in the links and resources document, I'll leave with you. The reason they have a subscription is to cover the licensing fees of some of the uses of those.
So Amanda has a question. If you want to unmute yourself, Amanda, and go ahead.
Sure. Just a quick question. So we moved from we were pre-recording everything, and then we've just recently moved to live streaming, but now we're struggling with the video quality. So like the lighting and stuff like that, we used to have great picture because we could have all the bright lights and stuff directly on our pastor, but now we can't put them there just to help with sensory issues and all that stuff for people live. Wondering if you have any tips on that.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. The first kind of question would be, what kind of camera are you using?
We have a Canon XA25.
Okay, so forgive me, I'm just going into my mental memory bank here from a production standpoint. So that camera has a smaller sensor than others. And so the light capacity on that camera is going to be, cameras basically succeed or fail in light. And that's the difference in terms of image quality. So if you look at, if you have a larger sensor, you have a better image. If you have a smaller sensor, you have a lower quality image. The smaller the sensor, the less light that's able to hit that sensor without it going either way, whether it's way too bright or way too dark. And certain cameras will have a higher capacity to handle low light and high light situations. That also plays into a little bit about the quality of lens and things like that. But yeah, I would say that if you could go, with a little bit like less intensity to not have to completely get rid of the solution you currently have, to use maybe your lights at a little bit lower percentage if you can. Even in your live stream, if you have an option to adjust your incoming channel of video footage, if you can adjust your brightness and contrast and highlights shadows there, sometimes after the fact can allow you to make some minor adjustments. But yeah, in terms of that, it really does come down to, unfortunately, it comes down to a camera thing that has a capacity of whether or not it's trying to do something with light artificially through ISO and those kind of changes, or it's trying to do something physically with their aperture, things like that, where it's trying to let more or less light out in.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And I had a question from Calvin. If you want to unmute yourself, Calvin. You're still muted. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, Pastor Tyler, thank you so much. I'm Kelvin from Liberia. I am the immediate FCA leader in Liberia. I led over 200 churches in Liberia. I pastor the Life-Giving Church. I'm so blessed to be part of this workshop. I'm so blessed. We in Liberia, and most of the materials we have here are from China. I don't even have my live streaming. I do that on Chinese phone with a very poor sound quality. Is there any way that you guys from Canada can help us in Liberia with this kind of digital audio that you can assemble and buy for a cheap price to help improve our services?
Kelvin, thank you so much for your question. And honestly, yeah, so good that you're here and that you're joining us. And that's just amazing. It's so good. Yeah, you know what? I think that relationship, I don't know if you have relationship with any kind of local pastors or teams in this area, or even on this chat even today, if anybody here, you know personally, but I'd be happy to chat with you, one-on-one or even via email. We can kind of go back and forth and see if there isn't a way that maybe we can help get something in your hands, or maybe we can kind of route it to you that way. So, I'm open to trying to figure that out. I understand the world is challenging in different ways in that way. But yeah, I'd be interested to look at some of the stuff that is available to you, and see if there isn't like a third-party option that would be available that would solve that. I'm sure there is. There has to be. I'm going to be honest, most of the equipment these days is manufactured in China anyways. So there's got to be a way to get some form of third-party equipment that would be accessible. But I'm happy to discuss that with you over email at any time.
All right. And I have a question from Renaison. Is that how you say it? Sorry if I just butchered your name. So they want to know what's the minimum requirements for a computer or a laptop that will handle the equipment?
That's a great question. Yes. I guess it depends. Do you have a preference in terms of PC or Mac?
Go ahead and unmute if you want to.
No, it's either Mac or PC. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you, basically, here's what I would not do. Is that okay? I wouldn't buy an entry-level computer of any kind that is kind of on the low end, entry level, that has low processing, low RAM, low memory. Anything like that is going to limit you in terms of what kind of video capture it can do, let alone what it can output without lagging or dropping frames. Part of that will come in to play with your internet connection as well and things like that. But you're going to want to look for kind of like a middle of the road kind of computer option if you're going to start with anything. So I would say like a MacBook Pro would be a great place to start. They have some good ones now. You could even get one that's a few years old that's cheaper than what's out now, that would still be just fine to run, you know, a couple cameras off of. You could also look at a PC option where you could probably, you know, talk to a company that will build it for you, or if you know someone that could source the components and parts that you need and kind of funnel the supply of RAM or memory in the way that you need it to be, could be a cheaper option for you than buying a MacBook or something like that. But again, I kind of come back to the ecosystem comment that I made before, where you know, everything that I do in my business life as well as ministry life is on a Mac. And so I just have a leaning that way when it comes to keeping things in an ecosystem for my team and for us in terms of communication. I can open up my iPhone and transfer a graphic in 5 seconds to the computer and have it on the platform immediately. And so that to me is of value. But PCs do have some strengths over Macs in terms of longevity, as well as being able to replace parts and kind of decide where and what parts you want to put in the right spots. So I'm not personally a computer expert. I wouldn't trust me with building you a computer, but I would not start with an entry-level piece of equipment, whether it's a MacBook or a laptop of some sort.
All right. So let me know if I missed anybody in the chat there. Anybody that I missed?
I think Iris, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I did, Tyler. Thank you very much for everything. It's wonderful. Do you come along with the equipment we purchased? No?
I
have to answer that.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I could come along in a phone call.
Well, what I just wanted to mention, have you heard, I was watching Ezra Levant on Rebel Media the other day, and he's just gone to an alternate YouTube site called Super U, and it's Canadian and brand new apparently. So I'm just wondering if that's any value for people that want to get off the censorship of YouTube. And also there's Rumble, which is Canadian as well. But anyway, and there's all sorts, I guess, of social media now coming out too that are, especially I guess in the States, because, you know, they've been censored so much, right?
You know, I'll say this, and I hope that you've maybe got a little bit of an idea of who I am as a person today. Just even me relationally speaking to you and from a ministry standpoint. I absolutely love, Anita, I see that you're here in session today, and I loved your message today. It was so inspiring and just moving for me. Yeah, I was really moved by it. So thank you for sharing that. But guys, I just want to encourage you that in this world right now, there's a lot of noise. And the noise can be very deafening and can be loud, but you do not need to be afraid. And we can be confident and bold and courageous in continuing to share the truth and to share the gospel in the ways we've continued to do for years, and in ways that we'll continue to do regardless of whatever comes against us. And so, you know, my encouragement to you more than anything is just go forward boldly. Use those channels that are available to you. Use YouTube, use Facebook, use Instagram. I believe that there are more good people than there are people that are making noise. And so I just want to encourage you with that today. I have personally, in all of my media experience, in my business, in church, I have not run into one censorship issue, not one. And I've been doing this for about 15 years. And so I just want to encourage you with that. Where we'll go from here, I don't know. But I trust God, and I trust that whatever way we have to, we will continue to share the good news. And that's my encouragement, as plainly as I can give it to you, is just keep focused on the main thing, and you'll be okay. And so
I hear you. I just add that there is no fear. It's just that I got a feeling a few things are going to be coming down, and I think it's good that some new things can rise up, you know, that are more righteous, if you know what I mean, right?
No, for sure. And you know what? We can't predict those things, and no one can. And so, you know, for me, in terms of how I live and how I operate, you know, I try to be as flexible as I can with the things that change that are out of my control. and be aware and be informed and do your research and, be informative and understand things, be intelligent about the choices that you make. All of you, just by looking at your faces, look like very intelligent people. And so I just encourage you with that. And, I'm right with you. So if you come across something that's of interest and something that you're coming up against, please share it with me. And I'm praying for you as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Tyler.
You're so welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Pastor Tyler. And if you do have more questions, we will, now I didn't notice on your document, Tyler, if your contact information is there. Is it, if you can even just type it in the chat to pass that along to everybody, just an email address there. You can always email the office as well and get his contact information, just office@fcaministers.com. And Autumn or I will be able to get that to you. Wonderful time that we had. Thank you so much, Pastor Tyler. I do appreciate that. We are going to be heading back to the main stage. It's going to start at the top of the hour. So that's in 9 minutes. So I am going to, if you are having trouble remembering where your link is, I'm going to put it in the chat right there underneath Pastor Tyler's email, and you can go there and we'll see you right back at, grab yourself a coffee if it's not too late to have another coffee for tonight. And this will be our last session for today. All right.
Cheers,
Thank
everyone.
you so much.
Thank you so much. Let me just close in a quick word of prayer.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for this time together today. God, that we had the opportunity to come and to learn together and to engage and continue to strive to understand what it is that you're implanting and imparting in each and every one of us. And so, God, with all the questions and all the things that we don't yet know, we trust you. God, with all the things that we have experienced and seeing your faithfulness and observing it in our lives, we thank you. And we just look forward to seeing what it is that you're going to do in our lives and in the lives of those around us. We pray this in your name. Amen. Bless you guys. Thank you so much. Reach out to me anytime. Enjoy the rest of the conference.